You're listening to the Huddle Up Podcast with Chad Jensen and Zack Kelberman. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com and sound off. And now it's time to drop some knowledge.
And we are live. Bear with us a sec while we bring on our Facebook community. Got to let it breathe just for a moment. Make sure we're all under the same tent here. Bear with us. And we are good. Welcome in, everybody, to the Huddle Up Podcast, presented, as always, by Mile High Huddle and powered by Overtime Media. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, as always, my partner in crime, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, I think by this point, our audience our community pretty well know how we feel about the prospect of giving up the farm to try and land Matthew Stafford. But it's a story that, frankly, it ain't going away. And one of the latest little morsels to come out on the Stafford trail, Zack, is Peter King speculating. He kind of floats the idea that it's going to take a first-round pick to get Matthew Stafford. Maybe not. He thinks it could take just 2 second-rounders. I say just like it's nothing, but 2 second-rounders and or maybe a Drew Lock and a second-rounder. What's your reaction to that? Would that make it more amenable to you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I want the Broncos to hold on to their first-round pick, but still, you're still committing. It's not just the draft capital to me. That's a negative. That's a red flag, but you're paying Stafford the salary that he's owed, which is $43 million, but you're also committing to Matt Stafford as the starting quarterback, which means you're turning the page on Drew Lock's tenure with the Broncos. People don't understand this. If they bring in a Stafford, even a Sam Darnold, those guys will be starting. The Drew Lock era will be over. So that's what bothers me most about it. It's you're not just giving up the draft picks and the money, but you're giving up on a young quarterback who's already shown that you can win with him in this league, with this team, with the right players and the right coaching around him. And I just don't think, even at the cost of a second-round pick, Matt Stafford, he of 0 career playoff wins and a Pro Bowl he backed into, is going to come to Denver and recapture what little lightning in a bottle existed before Megatron retired.
It would make me a little more amenable, but I still don't like it. I still think that it's a tired and worn out model that, frankly, did not work for the John Elway era of the Broncos. I've heard a few people throw out, well, look what happened when you got Jake Plummer here, dialing it all the way back to whatever that was, 03, 04, and 05. Yeah, that was a different time and place. Back then, you had Mike Shanahan, who, even though he would make a very poor and ill-advised, fateful decision to bail on Plummer and draft Jay Cutler, and then that just evolved into something that was, frankly, just an unwinnable product on the field. In that moment in time, Shanahan still had juice, and he was still one of the sharpest offensive minds in the league. So you knew that Jake Plummer, even though he had been a former second-round pick of the Cardinals and kind of flashed with Arizona and had shown some sign of life, you knew that if anyone could get something out of him, it would be Shanahan. Zack, I hate to break it to our audience, but I just don't have that same feeling with Pat Shurmur. I like Mike Shula, but I have some deep-seated doubts. I'm still willing to give him a benefit of the doubt, but I still have some doubts now about Pat Shurmur.
And that's exactly the point I made on yesterday's pod, that if you bring Stafford in, and knowing that Pat Shurmur and knowing that Vic Fangio and this coaching staff under a first-year GM and George Payton, they're all lame ducks. So if you bring Stafford in and then he doesn't do that well this season or doesn't meet the expectations that you'd set for him, what are you going to do? You're going to blow up the entire operation. You're going to fire your head coach. You're going to fire your OC, your quarterback's coach, and you're going to be stuck with a retread Band-Aid that you gave up a draft pick for and you gave up on a young quarterback for. So you have to be convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that a Matt Stafford will bring you a Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years. That is his window. And I keep saying this, the Broncos aren't a Stafford away from winning a title. I wish they were, Chad, but they have way more holes throughout the roster. The 49ers are a Matt Stafford away. The Colts are a Matt Stafford away. And not coincidentally, those are the 2 front runners, according to Vegas odds makers, to acquire Matt Stafford in a trade.
Guys, we have so much to get to tonight, including we got to talk about the Broncos losing a secondary coach to the Chargers, who's the new defensive coordinator down there. And we're going to talk with Luke Patterson, MHH's Luke Patterson, co-host of the Mile High Insiders podcast, who is in Mobile right now for the Senior Bowl. He's there. He's going to be there all week for Senior Bowl week to get the inside buzz and scoop on not only how these prospects and these players that we're interested in are shaping up, how they're looking, but what he's hearing, right? He's boots on the ground during one of the penultimate moments on the pre-draft trail. So we can't wait to talk to Luke and get his insight on how it's gone so far. And I got one question in particular for him that I'm dying to find out what the answer is. First, though, we got to say hello and thank you to the presenting sponsor of tonight's live stream pod, Manscaped. Fellas, listen up. 2020, forget about it. It's in the books. It sucked. It was horrible. It is now 2021, which means it's time to embrace the new year, new me mindset. And the best way to cultivate that mindset between the years there is with Manscaped. Manscaped is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming, offering precision-engineered tools for your family jewels and helping 2 million men around the world keep their male grooming on point, Zach.
Yeah, I want to speak to a segment of the audience that may be the male audience that may be a little apprehensive about male grooming or may want to start out small and don't want to get to the private areas, the unmentionables. What I'm holding right now is the Weed Whacker for your nose hair and your ear hair. If you want to start with that, with your face, with what people can see 100% of the time, more or less, unless you're wearing a mask, you need this. I promise you, start off small. It's no pain, no fuss, no muss, holds a charge forever, good grip, does the job well, and you feel better and look better. And that will enable you. I promise you guys, it will give you the confidence and the motivation to keep going throughout different parts of your body. And like Chad's going to show you, when you have the lawnmower, that'll do the job for the rest of you. So take my word for it, start out small, and you will want to keep going and make yourself feel and look amazing.
It really is all about the Lawnmower 3.0. It's the safest tool you're going to find for taking care of things below the belt. It's got the light that illuminates that the harder to see spots when you're trying to bend over and look and see what you're doing. This makes that exceedingly easier. But they also have the Manscape Travel Bag, which comes with a kit with a bunch of cool stuff in it, including the Manscaped cologne. They call it Refined. I like it. I put it showed my wife. What do you think? She loves it. I've been wearing this for the last 2 months. You got all kinds of little goodies that come with for your male grooming to stay on point with the Manscaped Travel Bag. So right now, gang, if you head on over to manscaped.com, use the code HUDDLE, you'll get 20% off and free shipping. Use that as your springboard for the new year, new me mindset, Zach.
Yes, again, guys, get 20% off and free shipping with the code HUDDLE at manscaped.com. Again, that's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the code HUDDLE. Happy New Year to you and your family jewels.
For what it's worth, it's been really cool to see different members of our community reach out and offer out, little testimonials on how much they've enjoyed their Manscaped products that they picked up on the Huddle code. So,
not too detailed, which is good.
Not too detailed. Yeah, they keep it surface, right? They're not going too deep on that
PG-13.
But it's been really cool to see. All right, guys, a couple other quick things. We'll dive right back in, grab Luke, see what's going on in Mobile. Make sure you're following the podcast on Twitter at HuddleUpPod and the main account at Mile High Huddle. Guys, there's two ways to keep the conversation going with us outside of these 1 hour live streams, and that's by following us on Twitter and then heading over to milehighhuddle.com and engaging in the comments, sharing your takes, responding to what we write in those articles that you read at milehighhuddle.com. Follow Zack Kelberman on Twitter at KelbermanNFL, myself at Chad and Jensen, and our producer, you know him as Buana Beast, on Twitter at John K. MHH. Also, gang, gentle reminder, head on over to huddleuppod.com, the merch store, and get your swag on. Get yourself a Football Priest hat. Zach's rocking the MHH dad hat, the hoodie. There's a little something for everybody. Face mask, mug. I mean, it's just another way to support what we're doing here at MHH. Rep the brand. And also, this is your daily reminder to become a supporter on Facebook. Now, again, make no mistake. When we say become a supporter, we're not just saying go follow the page. We're saying click the big blue button, become the supporter. What that does for you, all right, is it gets you access to Kelberman's Corner, which is every Sunday. Zach and Kim Becker have episode 4 dropping. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate that, my friend, on the Super. He says, good content. I'm in for $5 a month. It's worth it, talking about becoming an official supporter on Facebook. We are just scratching the surface with what we're going to be doing for our Facebook supporters with content coming down the pike in 2021, including draft content, including free agency content. So we're just scratching the surface, and you want to get in on that now while the getting's good. So go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. You'll see the big blue button. Click that. Or right now, if you're watching and listening on Facebook, if you scroll to the bottom right there where you would input your comment or your question in the chat, there's a green icon. If you click that, it'll take you right through to becoming a supporter. We do appreciate it. But if you're not in a position to do those things, it's all good. Gang, believe us when we say we are just happy to have you here with us. It means the world to us to have each and every one of you with us in the stream, or if you're listening after the fact as an on-demand podcast. But we do ask that you do these three things, all right? Number one, subscribe. That's crucial on YouTube, crucial on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Number two, like this video, guys. It is so easy. Right now, while you're on YouTube and you're on Facebook watching this content, just like it. You have no idea how much that helps us from an organic perspective. And then number three is the litmus test. If we're doing a good job for you, all right, share this video out there. Help us continue to grow and reach new like-minded Broncos fans just like you.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right, let's bring on Luke Patterson, co-host of Mile High Insiders, MHH staff writer, making the trip all the way down to Mobile, and it's a fun trip, and it's going to be memories he'll have for a long time. But Luke, thanks for peeling off a few minutes for us, my friend. How was your trip? That's what I want to start with. How was the trip to Mobile?
It was great, man. I was just so excited to get down here. 4:30 flight meant nothing in the morning. I was already up at 3 wanting to get down here to Mobile, and here we are the night before practice, and I'm ready to get to bed already just because it's like Christmas morning, dude. The draft starts tomorrow. It starts in Mobile. I'm ready to get things going.
Luke, all right, so go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I love the passion. I love the intensity that resonates with me. You get out there tomorrow on the field. You get out there to practice. Luke, who is the first player you're watching, you're spotting, you're going after?
Oh, I like Elijah Molden, cornerback from Washington. I like his swag a lot. I know people are going to scoff at his size, 5'10", 192 pounds, but this cat can play. Not only can he play, Zach, but he can find the ball, a turnover machine, 4 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, and 5 interceptions at Washington. He's a legacy player. His dad played in the NFL. His dad, of course, Alex Molden. I believe he was a college All-American at Oregon, spent some time with the Lions and the Chargers. But I want to see Elijah Molden, man. It's no secret that the Broncos need help in the secondary, Zach. Some of those premier cornerbacks, they might be gone early. So maybe the Broncos it would behoove them to look at corners maybe in the second, third, and later rounds.
I want to pick your brain on 1 or 2 more prospects that you're going to be keeping a close eye on. But one of the interesting topics right now that's kind of permeating through Broncos country is the fact that George Paton sent 9 scouts to the Senior Bowl. All right, there are 9 Broncos representatives down there, but it doesn't include him. He's staying back in Denver, and I think the official position, fellas, is that he's staying back because he's just now being able to sit down with all the coaches. All the coaches have now returned to the building, and that's kind of what they're saying on Front Street, right? That's the talking points. But the buzz is that he's actually staying back because Matthew Stafford is, of all the quarterbacks that have been speculated to be available on the trade market this year, potentially. It started with Deshaun Watson. He still hasn't officially been granted the permission to seek a trade. There's Matt Ryan has been speculated. Even Aaron Rodgers, after what happened in the NFC title game, has been rumored to maybe potentially at some point hit the market. Meanwhile, Matthew Stafford, though, he's officially available. And so, Luke, the idea is, I don't know what just happened there. How that changed. Let me go back. Let me do it this way. Yeah, we'll do. What the heck? That's weird. There we go. Let's keep it there. The speculation, though, Luke, this is a little long-winded, but the speculation is that he's sticking around because if you want to put in an offer, if you want to really strike while the iron's hot on Matthew Stafford, you got to do it now. Your thoughts on that?
I'm disappointed that George Paton's not going to be in Mobile. This is a guy that came up through the ranks as a scout, right? We just got done hearing about him sleeping on the couch in Chicago and putting in all those hours in Miami. The guy certainly knows football. What else do we know? John Elway, Joe Ellis, and all of the Broncos brass are telling us that this is George Paton's team. George Paton will be the one making decisions. So on the flip side of things, I'm confused. I'm disappointed. Selfishly, I'd like to see George Paton, maybe socially distanced, whatever. I like the Broncos staff a lot. but I'm a little disappointed. Now, as it relates to Matthew Stafford, this makes me wonder, is he wheeling and dealing? Is he trying to get some deals done? Broncos coaching staff, they're certainly in need of coaches with Renaldo Hill going to the Chargers, and I know you're going to touch on that a little bit later, but Curtis Modkins is the running back coach. Is he going to be going anywhere? He's interviewing, I think, for the Eagles as the offensive coordinator. So I understand that there are coaching needs that need to be filled, but it's really hard for me to wrap my brain around the fact that George Paton would stay in Denver to fill a coach's need. Deals can get done on the road, fellas, even with players. So I'm a little disappointed, but I'm also wondering, is George Paton empowering his staff? Will he lean on this scouting staff? And does he trust this scouting staff? And already, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? A little confused, but I'm still optimistic.
I think the thing with Peyton is that he has to still meet everyone. He has to meet the players. He has to meet the coaches. He's still getting the lay of the land in Denver. I mean, he's on the job just 2 weeks now, so I'm not totally shocked that he's not going to Mobile. But Luke, obviously, you might touch on this on your own podcast, the MHI podcast, but tell our listeners the top quarterback you're looking to scout this week that you want to see play that could maybe even land in Denver in late April.
Man, you're pinning me down, Zach, because everybody loves quarterback, and I'm out here wanting to talk about corners and linebackers. But for
not on this show, Luke.
Yeah, all those Florida fans that are right down the line, I'm going to go Kyle Trask. I think he's probably it for me. It's really limited down here, Zach, when it comes to some of those quarterbacks. Yeah. But Kyle Trask, I think he's for sure the leader in the clubhouse before it even starts. But he's got a lot to prove this week, just like every other player. With the NFL Combine being canceled, with pro days, up in the air, and that crazy little thing that's going around, that crazy little bug, this is a prove-it moment for everybody, not just the quarterbacks, which is obviously the most popular position with the NFL draft and in the sports world. But I got to go Kyle Trask from Florida. I know those Gators will like that.
Good stuff. John, real quick, do we have any supers directly for Luke? And if not, I got one more for Luke. If so, I'll throw this one at Luke and then see if there's any supers directly for Luke. But you have an article that's going to be coming out here in just about an hour. It's going to be publishing at milehighhuddle.com, previewing again some of these names that you're going to be keeping a close eye on. I found it curious as your copy editor that you included a running back. All right, yeah. Khalil Herbert from Virginia Tech. Really quick, talk about why you like Khalil Herbert, the running back, and how he might be able to fit with the Broncos.
He's an absolute baller. I know you're shocked, and before the Philip Lindsay fans come after me, just slow down for a second. We don't know what the Broncos are going to do with Philip Lindsay. Melvin Gordon, he's a hot mess too. Running back, you've got to look at running back, especially this kid, Khalil Herbert, 5'9", 212 pounds from Virginia Tech. Now, Chad, here's the thing. He was a 5-year college player, right? 5th-year redshirt senior. So 4 years at Kansas. In his 4 years at Kansas, 1,735 yards on the ground, 14 touchdowns, just to transfer over to Virginia Tech, where he's playing in the ACC and he lights the conference on fire, averaging 7.6 yards per carry, another 1,000-yard season. This cat is shifty. He's patient. He knows how to read his blocks. He's got a great center of gravity, and I think he's a real powerful player. I was surprised when I got in yesterday to see that he's actually going to be at the Senior Bowl. I know that he accepted a Shrine Bowl invite, and then he was kind of a last-minute addition, at least on the website and at least from what I was hearing with the Senior Bowl. So I'm pumped to see this kid, man. He's got a lot to prove, and he can catch the ball as well, play special teams. The Broncos need talent.
Luke, I'll throw you a bone because the Broncos do need a linebacker. Tell us about some of the linebackers that you want to scout, edge, off-ball guys this coming week at the Senior Bowl.
So I'm going to bring up a name that maybe a lot of people will scoff at, but to me, he's got something to prove. It's Tough Borland, man. I know you've got some gnarly Ohio State linebackers with him, but Tough Borland had a really tough outing in the national championship against Alabama. We know that the 6'1", 234-pounder is a classic inside linebacker. He loves to step in, fill that hole. He will fight offensive linemen. He'll fight fullbacks if there is a fullback anymore in the NFL. He brings depth, Zach. He brings depth to not only your special teams unit, but your linebacking core. And to me, when you've got a player that has so much to prove, and this is kind of the last stage, this is it. No more workouts. Maybe this is it, man. You will not play football again. maybe this guy's a sleeper that they could pick up in the 6th, 7th round. That's kind of where I'm mocking him right now. At least there's one draft out there mocking him to the Eagles in the 7th round, but late sleeper for linebacker.
Did you say, excuse me, that he's related to the Borland, the former Niners backer who played at Wisconsin?
I don't know if he's related. No, I can't speak to that. I know that this tough Borland, though, he was a 3-year starter, Zach. And while some people might get after me, 3-year starter, so what? He provided consistency with an Ohio State program that was transitioning from Urban Meyer over to Ryan Day. He was that one constant. So he's a leader on the field. He's a leader off the field. And what's the thing the Broncos need? Leadership and consistency.
And some toughness, so perfect name for that.
That's right. You can't go wrong there, man.
No.
All right, let's grab this one super. I want to get Luke's take on this, and then we'll cut Luke loose because he's got a lot of plates that he's spinning right now. Ben Roth, appreciate that super chat, my friend. He has a comment here that says, I would not give up the 9th pick for Stafford. Best case scenario, he could take us to 10-6. It's all about drafting the next quarterback if Locke isn't it. Now, Luke, our listeners know pretty well at this point. I mean, not that this is a topic that's going to be going away anytime in the near future, but our audience knows pretty well how Zach and I feel on the subject of ponying up a first-round pick plus more to grab a Stafford. But give us your take on what Ben's bringing up there. Do you agree that the number 9 overall pick is a bridge too far?
I do. I think that's pretty rich for a team that has so many holes. We're not just this isn't the Broncos where it's just a couple offensive linemen and if we get a quarterback, we can figure it out. Oh, we've got speed and speed kills. Not when you don't have any defensive backs, not when you've got a linebacker that's more worried about doing a dinosaur dance and covering people, drawing flags. Josie Jewell, I love Josie Jewell, right? Iowa, my guy Nick Kendall, I love Josie Jewell, but he's a try-hard guy. He's a jack. He's just another guy. The Broncos have so much they need to get to, and I could stay on your show all night, and we can even get into the D-line, man. But defense, man, we were promised an excellent defense with Vic Fangio, and we're not getting that. So, yeah, it's a little too rich for me to go after Stafford with that pick, but crazier things have happened. Believe it or not, I have been wrong before as well. So if the Broncos go after Matthew Stafford, people in Broncos country should absolutely be excited.
All right, guys, you got to, as soon as the show's over, in fact, you can do it while you're watching. Open up Twitter, follow Luke Patterson on Twitter, at Luke Patterson LP. He's going to be in Mobile repping the brand, MHH, repping Mile High Insiders, his podcast, all week long, bringing the inside scoop and bringing just the insights as a guy boots on the ground there. So make sure you're following him. Luke, again, I know you have a lot you're juggling down there, so thanks for making some time for us. And we plan on being able to, time willing, right? It depends on how things go for you down there. If you get pulled into this, you get pulled into that. But time willing, we hope to have you on every single show this week from Huddle Up to Building the Broncos on to find out what's going on. So thanks for making some time for us, my brother, and have fun.
Yeah, Zach, Chad, Mile High Huddle, the best place for Broncos coverage, the only place where there's a podcast on every single day of the week. We got guys and girls writing articles in the middle of the night while you guys are sleeping. So be sure to get at milehighhuddle.com. Be good, fellas.
All right. Appreciate you, brother. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
There he goes. Luke Patterson. He's grinding it out down there with his boy, Cecil Lammy, and they're there, and I envy them because I covered the Senior Bowl one year. I think it was the 2015 year, and it's just an experience that anyone who covers the NFL, I don't care what team it is that you cover, or even if you're national, if you're covering it at large, you got to have that Mobile experience, and it's just the ambiance of it is just absolutely phenomenal. And I want to riff off some of the things Luke had to say tonight, but first we do got to say thank you to another one of our great sponsors, sportsbetting.com. Gang, listen up. Right now, gambling legal in the state of Colorado. And maybe you want to make watching your favorite sports a little more interesting. Maybe you want to make the Super Bowl a little more interesting because here you are backed into the corner of literally the worst case scenario. On one hand, do you root for the Kansas City Chiefs? Unthinkable. On the other, do you root for Tom Brady and the Bucs? Also unthinkable. It's a no-win situation, but you can make that a little bit more interesting by utilizing sportsbetting.com. With sports betting, you get sharp odds, low juice. They have their own in-house bookmakers. That means they're not using a third party to provide for their odds. You get hassle-free bonuses that you roll over after one time. So after you bet it once, you can roll it over, you can use it, you can access it, you can pull it out, as opposed to some of the other sites out there make you bet it 5 to 30 times. And then also 24/7 live customer support. And I think you all know what I'm saying here when I say that anytime you're dealing with money or anything, if you need to talk to someone, you want a real human being. You don't want a bot, and you don't want someone that you have a hard time communicating with, all right, or getting a hold of. But here's the kicker. Right now, sportsbetting.com, after you make your first deposit, sportsbetting.com will double your deposit up to $300. That is $300 in free bet credits. So head on over to sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle. That is sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle and capitalize on up to $300 in free bet credits and make that Super Bowl a little bit more palatable. All right, real quick here, Zach. I think we would be remiss to dismiss. All right, I'm rhyming. I'm a poet, and you didn't even know it. How the significance of George Paton staying back for the Senior Bowl, because here he is starting off his first draft season as a GM. And this is a job that I wouldn't necessarily say he's been pining for, but like, look, this dude's been working his rear end off for 20 years in the league at different spots and whatnot. Finally finds the right fit, takes the job. You would think he would want to maximize, right, every single opportunity for him to lay eyes and kind of get a stranglehold on the issues relating to the Denver Broncos roster and what it's going to take to make this team better. So why isn't he not traveling? I do think there's a little something to that. And the whole Matthew Stafford thing. I hate to say it because I'm not a fan of the idea of bringing Matthew Stafford here, but I think there's a reason he stayed behind. And it's, I don't know, if the Lions don't acquiesce to Stafford and say, hey, all right, go ahead and seek a trade. If we don't hear that Friday or Saturday, I think George Paton, if not yesterday, tonight, he's on a plane to Mobile.
Well, again, we've mentioned this, but during his long tenure with the Vikings, he was very well acquainted with the Lions players, and I'm sure the coaching staff and the executives there. So if there's any GM or executive in the NFL who knows what Stafford could do, it's George Paton. Chad, I'm usually right there with you on the conspiracy theories. I wear the tinfoil like you do at times, but I think this was more so a new rookie general manager still getting the lay of the land. He mentioned this in his opening press conference. He's still learning the names of the players, the scouts, the coaches. It's a big position to fill. He's also working under John Elway. He's, being guided by him and advised by him. I just think it's more to do with the timing of it and him growing into the role. If he was already a GM, if this was his second or third stint, I think he'd be out there. But between CV concerns and everything being somewhat remote or virtual, I think, like Luke said, he's leaning on his scouting department because he's stuck with them. He can't get rid of the scouts until after the draft. This is his holdover coaching staff, holdover executives. So I think he's letting the Broncos process play out, as it were, even if he was not hired this offseason.
This is one of those topics I got to disagree with you on, because when I was there in 2015, and it coincided literally, I flew in on a Monday, just like Luke tonight. All right, he's kind of hanging back. This is the calm before the storm, as he talked about. It's like kid on Christmas Eve. You can't wait to wake up and open the presents, because everything starts on Tuesday. That's when the practices start. And when I was there in 2015, it was conspicuous that Elway was not there. And not only was Elway nowhere to be seen, all right, I was seeing representatives from scouts, GMs, coaches from every team in the league walking around. I mean, you're rubbing shoulders with all these guys, all these people, even in the plane I flew in on. I mean, I flew in to Mobile, my connection from Houston to Mobile, with the entire Kansas City Chiefs scouting department. Like, I'm sitting right next to a Chiefs scout, and right across the aisle from me, John Dorsey. Like, everyone's there. And it was conspicuous. There were no Broncos, no Elway, no nothing. And I wasn't the only one that noticed it. Yeah, I'm there to cover the Denver Broncos, but I wasn't the only one that noticed it. It was weird. And then they finally showed up on Wednesday. But the reason why they were delayed getting there was because they were ushering in the Gary Kubiak era. He had just been hired, and they had to handle all that PR with taking care of his intro presser and getting on the same page there, and then rallying the troops and, give us a quick shopping list. Gary and your new staff. All right, we're heading to Mobile. Zach, Levi Hope jumping in. Appreciate the super, bro. He says, what George Paton said about building through the draft makes me think he's talking about quarterback as well. I think he really wants to find his quarterback, and I believe he will look to the draft.
Well, I mean, I'll be the first one to eat crow, Chad, if they do make a trade for Stafford and that deal was being made at the Senior Bowl. I don't see it with someone as patient and someone with as much foresight as George Payton. But again, I've been wrong in the past, as Luke said. He could draft a quarterback. My personal opinion is he'll bring in a high-priced or mid-tier veteran, I should say, maybe an Andy Dalton, Fitzpatrick, Trubisky's out there, someone like that, and you have a failsafe in that veteran. You have your young guy who you're not jumping ship on in Drew Lock, and it's kind of the best of both worlds. And you can still win with a Drew Lock when he's on, and if he's not, you can win with an Andy Dalton when he's on. I think that's the direction he's going to go, but we don't know.
I'm inclined to agree 100% on that. And I think that 2021 is kind of the last hurrah of the John Elway blueprint. I think George Payton, one of the not necessarily a bargaining chip, but one of the premises that kind of had to be accepted to take this job were kind of keeping things in place, including Vic Fangio, right? That was something that, Fangio was part of the crew that interviewed him, for crying out loud. And so I think this is a year where he's going to tweak. He's going to look under every stone, like he said, to try and improve this roster. But I think it's a holding pattern in terms of quarterback and the coaching staff for the most part. Now, that was before, of course, when he's interviewing with Elway and he's interviewing with Joe Ellis and Vic Fangio, that was before they knew for sure any of these quarterbacks who had been rumored to potentially be available on the trade market were officially leaked, right? And at this point, again, the only one we know for sure who's available is Matthew Stafford. So I'm dying to find out just how interested he is. We'll know.
Right.
Because, look, in the NFL, the love language is money, all right? But the other thing is, it's not what they say, Zach, it's what they do. And I think that's why if I'm trying to interpret actions, I am reading in a little bit to why he's deciding to stay back. And because, look, you're going to have the coaches whenever, right? If the talking point is, no, he's staying back to kind of get a beat on the coaches and meet with all the coaches, I'm sure there is some truth to that. I'm sure that there is a utility of staying back, one of them being getting on the same page with the coaches, but it's not like he won't have all the time in the world this offseason to do just that. Meanwhile, there's only one Senior Bowl. It only happens 1 week every single year. So there's something about that, Zach, that is just itching at me. And here's a super from Anthony Edwards. Thank you, my friend. He says the number 9 pick, greater than, right? Using what do you call that? The equation. Greater than Stafford. For us right now, maybe not the Colts, though. So he's saying maybe the Colts, who really are more of a one quarterback away from being in it, a little more amenable to giving up a first-round pick.
Because their first-round pick is almost a second-round pick, Chad. It's in the late 20s. That's, to me, if they're a quarterback away. If I'm covering the Colts, if this was a Colts podcast, if this was, huddle up Colts, commentary, I would advocate for it, first or second-round pick, because you're a quarterback away. And a late first-rounder might as well be a second-rounder. A little different than a top 10 pick, though, which is almost like having 2 first-round picks. So I can't get on board with that, even for a second-round pick. For 33-year-old Matt Stafford, when, like Luke agreed, you're not a quarterback away, and if you have Stafford and he has no defense, you're in the same position he was in Detroit. And it's just the vicious cycle you're going to put yourself on again. I don't want to be on that cycle anymore, Chad. I want to get off of that cycle for good.
I feel you, and I do too.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Muhammad, MHH, male model, jumping in with a super sticker, they call it. Appreciate that, my brother. No, you're number one. And I'm just trying to remind myself what we had arranged, what I DM'd you on Twitter. I want to say it was the 10th. Hopefully we can have Muhammad on for a superstar segment, February 10th. And we absolutely look forward to that, my friend.
That's a little creepy, though. Is she shooting hearts out of her hair?
That is weird.
It's kind of a disturbing graphic. Thank you, though, Muhammad.
We love you, dog. I got one here from we got a reverse engineer from J-Bones in the house. Appreciate the super, my friend. And yes, I'm glad you brought this up because last night, just the way the show shook out and the title game was going on while we were live, we didn't get a chance to touch on this. But Tony Jones, former Denver Broncos right and then left tackle, has passed away at a very, very young age. I want to say he was 54, if I'm not mistaken. And J-Bone here says, R.I.P. to Tony Jones, the original Bones. Well, I'm not as big as good old number 77, but I'm going to carry that nickname for the man. Do it justice. # I'm not crying. You're crying. Hey man, we feel you, and again, thank you for bringing that up. And just to give a quick tribute to Tony Jones, this is a guy that had a similar career path, a little bit earlier, but a similar career path to the Rod Smith of the world, and even a C.J. Anderson, guys who went undrafted, did not hear their name called on draft day, but fought and clawed their way into the league. He ended up making a Pro Bowl long before he was a Denver Bronco with a different team. I'm trying to remember who that was now off the top of my head. But then the Broncos get him, and he ends up starting and winning 2 Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos, making another All-Pro along the way. In fact, I think I got that backwards. He was an All-Pro with the previous team and then Denver Broncos Pro Bowler. So, yeah, definitely a tragedy, Zach. 54, just too young. Too young. And I don't know the circumstances, but just too young.
I'm sure I'm not going to make it political. I'm sure the circumstances would be Stevie related somehow, but 54 regardless is way, way too young. And it's terrible. You know, it's not much more I can say without coming off insincere. I wish the best to the Jones family, and what a legend he was.
Antonio Aragon. I know John's seeing if he can pull it up on the back end. We're having some technical difficulties with our supers tonight, but don't worry, we're going to get to every single one of them. Antonio, appreciate you, dog. He says, "What's up, guys? I can really see the Broncos making a playoff push next year with a healthy team, and I'm excited to see our young receivers." There he is in year 2. I do think there's a solid chance. Again, Zach, let's just say for the sake of this conversation, for the sake of argument, that the Denver Broncos stay the course with Drew one more year. They bring in a backup like a Dalton, a Fitzpatrick, or a Jacoby Brissett or something like that, and they use the capital and the resources they have to re-sign their own and draft and fill some massive holes on defense. I do think this reverts back to kind of the optimism that we had last year, in that, you can compete for a 9-10 win type season and a wild card berth if you stay healthy. That's the caveat here. And maybe you could say that that's the caveat every year. But in the Denver Broncos case, I've been covering the team almost a decade, and I've been following the team for 3.5 decades. I've never seen the injury bug take as big a bite out of the Denver Broncos as it did in 2020.
And the proper coaching. I mean, in 5 games in 2019, the Broncos won 4 of them with Drew Lock. And if you extrapolate that, that's a playoff season. They still went 7-9 with 3 different quarterbacks in 2019 because the coaching was better and the injuries, as you mentioned, weren't as prevalent. Can the Broncos be a playoff team? Absolutely. They have the horses. It's going to come down to the quarterbacking and the coaching, as it always does. But like Chad mentioned, would you want to have Lock plus, let's just say, Andy Dalton, plus you resign Simmons, plus you resign Shelby Harris, plus you have the 9th overall pick, plus you have a 2nd-round pick? Or do you acquire Matt Stafford and do none of that? Or maybe resign one of those guys and give up a 2nd-round pick? You're really limiting yourself. The Broncos are not one player away. And if you want to make the playoffs next year, heck, if you want to make the playoffs for the next 5-10 years, that's what George Payton wants to do. It's something Terry Fontenot mentioned today in his in a video for the Falcons website. It's building a long-term model for success. Not 1 year, not one bad year, one good year, a long-term consistent model. And I believe that's the same mindset in which Payton will operate.
Shout out to you, Marcus, listening and being with us here in the live stream across the pond in the United Kingdom, where, gosh, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning over there. So props to you, my friend, for grinding it out with us and staying up into the wee hours. The Queen jumping in from the top rope, as she is wont to do, just showing us some love. Appreciate that, Christy. You know how much we love and appreciate you. She's right up there. We still have, I should say, some big plans to unveil in the very near future. A masthead of sorts. I'm still trying to perfectly articulate what it's going to be, but we're going to have a masthead of sorts of our MHH Mount Rushmore superstars. And it's something that our community members, for those who are interested, can start working their way up and be a part of it, be on there. Obviously, Christy, though, Zach, she's right up there. Phase 1, 2, 3. She's right at the very top.
Yeah, and this podcast is always better when she pops her face in here, Chad. When she's in the chat, she always makes it a better place. And Christy, our appreciation and gratitude for you literally knows no bounds. We love you and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Let me see what else we've got here. We're at 38 minutes, so we're doing okay on time. I want to grab here Dave from Georgia, who is being very generous with the super. Love you, Dave. Seriously, bro. Appreciate you. And this is another one of our bona fide superstars, longtime listener, longtime supporter of MHH. Dave says, Stafford is a good quarterback, but is he worth the number 9 pick? In my mind, no, he's not, period. I agree with Zach when he preached patience with Drew. I'm looking forward to seeing if he looks better, Drew, in year 2 in the same offense. Amen. You don't know what you could be. Zach, here's the one thing. There's a lot of fans out there. And again, I talked about this last night, but it has been alarming to me to see how many Broncos fans have just, again, there's a reason I don't use absolutes when it comes to football, because it can blow up in your face really, really quickly. But there are many fans out there who have turned the page completely. Like Drew Lock, dead to them. Never going to be anything. And I don't quite understand it. Like if it was a 16-game year 2 from Drew where you didn't lose your number 1 wide receiver, you had OTAs, you had preseason, you didn't injure your throwing shoulder, and some of the other little outliers that affected this thing, I would maybe understand it a little bit more. But considering the weird peccadillos this dude had to deal with, and a lot of it, it doesn't excuse him, doesn't excuse his at times obvious regression on the field and whatnot, Zach. But it just, for me, it's hard to wrap my brain around why so many fans who at this time last year were just stoked and hell-bent on Drew Lock's our guy to suddenly get me off this train as soon as possible. This dude is dead to me. Find a replacement now.
Chad, it happened when Locke got injured or when he was doing, poorly over the first half of the season. All the calls for, trade the farm for Trevor Lawrence or start Brett Rippon, start Jeff Driscoll, start Blake Bortles. It was anyone but Drew Lock. And then when Lock came back and beat the Dolphins or beat the Patriots, they said, oh, he was the next greatest thing. Fans are very fickle and fans are very desperate and very impatient right now. Same reason I had to tweet yesterday. It's like, yesterday it was trade for Watson. Today it's trade for Stafford. Tomorrow it's trade for Aaron Rodgers. It's like, it's getting increasingly stupider and stupider now and less realistic. They're not going to trade more than likely for any of those quarterbacks, nor is that the model the new GM, George Payton, wants to follow. You have a young quarterback. He's shown he has the foundation that can be a starting quarterback at this level. Continue building into that. Give him a full offseason. Give him the same system continuity for the second year in a row for the first time since his sophomore year of college.
Oh.
Give him back his receivers. Give him back hopefully better coaching and a better defense and let him go to work. And if he busts, he busts. But you have to know for sure because right now they don't. We know what Stafford is. We don't know what Drew Lock is ultimately at this level.
I wonder how many of those same fans who have, and again, if you really don't think that Drew's the guy, I don't fault you for having an opinion. Don't get me wrong. It's the vitriol, all right? It's the outright hate and disrespect that I see on social media. And sometimes in our chat, not too much, but sometimes. But I wonder how many of those same fans who have turned the page on Drew, the absolutists, if you will, that Drew is not the guy. I wonder what their tune would be if he were a first-round pick. Like, what if John Elway doesn't trade back in 2019, all right? He takes Drew at pick 10. Would you still be singing that tune? And if your answer is no, I probably wouldn't. If you're honest with yourself, you got to ask why it changes just because he was picked 20 picks later than that. Seriously, what changes in that equation, Zach?
Do you remember the hardcore support that Paxton Lynch got? And he did less to show for it than Drew Lock has through 2 seasons now. And there were diehard fans saying, oh, he's going to beat out Simeon this time. The first time was a fluke. And guess what? He didn't do it. Paxton Lynch was a bust. And because he was a first rounder, like you mentioned, Chad, he got way more of an exoneration period than Drew Lock is getting. I think that it's very, very unfair. Some of the, like you said, the vitriol and the ad hominem attacks, the personal attacks against Lock as a person when he's a young quarterback still growing into his own, saddled with a lot of unfair circumstances. Is he perfect? No, but he's still developing. Give him a little more time.
Anthony Edwards, appreciate the super again, my friend. He says, DB coach, Fangio's say is less than Peyton's say. I think on the coaching staff issue, with regard to maybe it'd be different like a coordinator, but that's Fangio's call. And look, the Broncos, for those of you who missed it, Denver's secondary coach, Renaldo Hill, also former Denver Broncos safety, back in the I want to say the Josh McDaniels era, so like 09-10, he was the free safety to Brian Dawkins' strong safety, wore number 23, but he's coached the DBs since Vic Fangio arrived. He took the head coaching gig the defensive coordinator gig with new head coach Brandon Staley with the Los Angeles Chargers. And Zach, for people trying to make the connection, it's not just because he's a Fangio, appreciate you, Marcus, he's not just a Fangio acolyte that makes Brandon Staley attracted to bringing on Renaldo Hill as the defensive coordinator. By the way, this is Renaldo Hill's first chance to be a coordinator. It's the fact that they worked together. In 2019, Renaldo Hill was coaching DBs in Denver, and Staley was coaching outside linebackers in Denver. And so they have a working relationship in the past. The stars aligned, but you can't – it's really not too much skin off Denver's teeth, Zach, because their defensive coordinator, his area of expertise, Ed Donatel, secondary.
And it's the same thing. I was going to make that same point. More than likely, Brandon Staley, having a defensive background, is going to call his own plays as the head coach. So Renaldo Hill is in title only, just like Ed Donatel is. It wouldn't hurt him too much. And I think last year, some of the Broncos cornerbacks and defensive backs, I know they were racked by injury, but that secondary, they fell from 11th against the pass in 2019 to 16th last year under Renaldo Hill. So I like what Staley's building out there. He has Joe Lombardi as his new OC, but to take on, he's a rookie head coach hiring a rookie defensive coordinator. It's a bold move, Cotton.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, dude. Like, you can tip your cap to Renaldo Hill for how, he had to use freaking toothpicks, bubble gum, like Band-Aids, anything he could to try and keep that cornerback room viable on a week in and week out basis because of the injury bug. Like, he deserves credit for just for fighting through that adversity in the same way that like Kendall Hinton deserves credit for fighting through the adversity of having to start in week 12 at quarterback. Even though he was terrible, you tip your cap to him for fighting through it. Same thing with Renaldo Hill. But let's face it, dude, the Broncos secondary was not good this year. They were better last year. They were not good this year. And maybe you say, look, it's not just Fangio. It's not just the presence of Ed Donatel that saw Justin Simmons finally realize his potential in 2019, gets second team All-Pro, then a franchise tag. 2020 finally gets a Pro Bowl nod. Maybe it's not just Fangio, not just Ed Donatel. Maybe you give some of that credit to Renaldo Hill, and justifiably so. Mm-hmm. But I got to tell you, I wasn't impressed with Denver's passing defense this year.
No, I wasn't either. They were way too susceptible. And like you said, I mean, Fangio is a defensive mastermind. Ed Donatel comes from a secondary background. They can afford to lose Renaldo Hill. But, Curtis Modkins, the running backs coach, he interviewed yesterday. I don't believe he's getting the job in Philadelphia, but for the OC job there, Brandon Staley was hired as a head coach. So the Vic Fangio, he's growing the coaching tree. But this last move was like a thorn in his side.
Drew Hollenbeck in the house. Another one of our Mount Rushmore superstars. Love you, buddy, and just appreciate that.
Yeah, very generous.
That generosity, dude. It just hits us right here, my dog. So thank you so much. He says, I want Caleb Farley or J.C. Horn. Caleb Farley is the Virginia Tech corner. J.C. Horn, South Carolina. Still got to find a linebacker that can cover. Josie Jewell is the best we have right now. That's not a good thing. Zach, that is not a good thing, no doubt about it. The linebacker, look, you can get by with Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson in terms of like, you need two guys that can chase the ball, get off the block with relative, competency. But when it comes to trying to contain the middle of the field, linebackers covering tight ends, linebackers trying to run with a slot receiver time and again, linebackers trying to run with a running back who goes out into a pattern. These dudes are they leave the defense vulnerable to being exploited. And you know what? If you're not going to go out and use your first round pick on a linebacker, you're probably not going to solve that problem immediately in 2021, Zach, if you're George Payton. But there is one flyer. There is one hope. All right. It's like Yoda, right? Telling Obi-Wan Kenobi, there is another, and that's Justin Sternad. There's a chance, but he got hurt. Still completely unproven, but he does check some of those boxes.
Yeah, I mean, I made the same point on the Draft Primer show last week that I'm just tired of the Broncos getting by with mediocrity at inside linebacker. I'm tired in a passing league having two starting inside linebackers that thrive against the run and are deplorable against the pass. But you have to weigh what's a bigger need. Inside linebacker where you can get by, or cornerback where can you really get by? A.J. Boye's likely gone. Callahan's an injury risk constantly. Duke Dawson's coming off an injury. St. Bass's coming off an injury. You need cornerbacks. As much as I love Micah Parsons, if Caleb Farley's on the board, I agree with Drew. I think that's my pick, number 9 overall.
Anthony Edwards jumping in again. Thank you, bro. He says, be better than Stafford at 32. Actually,
33 in 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Not even that. I mean, this dude is 33 years old. All right. So, and again, like, I get it. There are some traits there, some measurables. Nick Kendall had an article on Sunday, I want to say, that was kind of riffing off and analyzing some of the things from the Draft Network, their podcast, the Draft Dudes, which is one of the most popular draft-centric podcasts in the nation. What they had to say about Matthew Stafford and what it would take. We touched on this last night, but one of the points they asserted on Stafford is that he's a top 12 physical talent in the NFL in terms of, size, arm talent, all that stuff. And I think there was a time that was true. I think back in, from the time he was drafted up until about 2015, 2016, you could make that argument. I'm not sure he's still that at, entering his 13th year. Thank you for the super chat, by the way, MRM 5897. Really appreciate it.
I think he's entering the back nine of his career. I think the twilight or the glory years of Matt Stafford's career, unfortunately, were wasted in Detroit. But I don't think that's a guy that you go against the grain on in the NFL. You mentioned this, Chad, which is a good point. How many teams are trading for a veteran quarterback and going on to winning a Super Bowl? How many of the recent quarterbacks that won titles were acquired via trade? I mean, talk about Tom Brady. He still signed a free agent contract. You didn't have to trade for him. These deals rarely work out, and you think the Broncos would have known better by now after Keenum, after Flacco, and they experienced a little success with Locke, enough to give him 2020, and you experience a little more in the second half of 2020. Why doesn't that carry over? Why does that the ultimate reflex and the ultimate habit is to go, the knee-jerk reaction is to go back to the well of an old retread Band-Aid quarterback. I'm tired of leftovers. I'm tired of sloppy seconds. I want my own young quarterback to build and develop and grow and win with.
And miss me on the whole Jake Plummer allegory here, all right? Because Jake Plummer was, first of all, he wasn't a traded, all right? He was a free agent that signed with the Broncos in 2003. And I love Jake Plummer, seriously. Like, Jake Plummer, before Peyton Manning landed in Denver, to me, he was my number 2 Bronco quarterback all time behind Elway only. Peyton comes in, he's got to step back and be number 3, but it was just a different time. And it's not something that you can perfectly line up to the situation today of getting Stafford, because when Plummer landed in Denver, he landed on a proven coaching staff. Not only did Mike Shanahan have 2 Super Bowls at that point as a head coach, one as a coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers, but you still had Gary Kubiak for 2 more years. Well, let's see. Kubiak left in 2006, so you had, I think it was 2006. Either way, you still had Kubiak there too for at least 2 of the, I think for those 3 years that Plummer was, it was after the AFC Championship game, 2005, when the Broncos lost to the Steelers at home. And that was the game, of course, that caused Mike Shanahan to say, I'm done with Jake Plummer. He literally had the worst game of his career in the biggest game of his career. So I understand partly why Shanahan was so disabused of keeping Plummer and all that, but this is not the same situation. I don't trust Zach, Vic Fangio, Pat Shurmur, Mike Shula on the same scale right now that I would a Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak regime circa 2003.
But circa 2003 is where Pat Shurmur is stuck in, though, as an offensive coordinator. And Matt Stafford might as well be stuck in 2012, 2013, the glory years with Calvin Johnson. So it doesn't fit this day, this model, this business nowadays, Chad, the trend the league is going. It just goes against it in every way. And I just think it'd be a catastrophe for a lame duck head coach and a first-year GM.
Fat Cats, good to see you, my friend. Really appreciate your support, which has been really consistent the last month and a half or so, I would say. So thank you, bro. He says, can't stay in, just throwing some love out. Thanks for the Broncos fix during the week. As always, keep up the good pod, fellas. Really appreciate that, my brother. We got one also here from Willie G. Appreciate you, bro. He says, you 3 speaking my language tonight. Talking about, of course, when Luke was on with us. And if you guys missed that segment with Luke, if you're joining us late, once we get off, just dial it back, rewind. Luke is currently in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl, and we're bringing him on each and every show this week to pick his brain on what's happening down there. Also, we got one here, Zach from Blue Raw, our friend Chris. He says, hey, no Aaron Rodgers to Denver conversation tonight. We touched on it early, Chris, if you missed it, but that is to me, it's such a flimsy rumor at this stage. Like, it's just a lazy type. Oh, He flamed out. They lost another title game. It was the coach's fault. They didn't allow Rodgers to go for it on that fourth down when you're basically on the goal line. And they drafted a quarterback 2 years ago in the 20s in the first round. Doesn't it kind of make sense that, dude, this is probably going to be the reigning MVP? Like Aaron Rodgers, you want to talk about an outlier. You want to talk about an unprecedented scenario. Has a reigning MVP ever been traded the following offseason? I can't think of a ton.
Next is Jimmy Garoppolo trade rumors and Kirk Cousins trade rumors. It's going to be an entire offseason of that until the Broncos find their quarterback. There's no way Rodgers is going anywhere. And I was shaking my head while you were talking because it's not even a rumor. It's baseless speculation based on Rodgers' comments after the game on Sunday where he said, no one knows what the future holds. He just lost a bitter game. This guy was disappointed to the max. He doesn't really feel like talking introspectively about his future. I think he stays in Green Bay for one more year. But, Chad, even if he doesn't, real quick, let's hypothetically say that the Broncos got A-Rod. They're competitive for, 2 years? He's not going to be like Brady playing to 45. What do you do after that? Do you guys want to be a winning team for 2 years, like with Peyton Manning, and then go back to being – a basement-dwelling team to be irrelevant again? Or do you want a young quarterback that you win around, that you develop around, that you build up and can win for 5, 10, 15 years? That's what I want, Chad.
To me, though, and I agree with you, but to me it's a different – and you guys have heard me say this. In fact, I think I said it last night. Aaron Rodgers, to me, has always been slightly overrated, all right, just a little bit. But to me, it's a completely different conversation, the notion of giving up some real capital to trade for a quarterback when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers versus Matthew Stafford. Like Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl. He's a perennial All-Pro and Pro Bowler. He's been an MVP, and he's won playoff games. It's a different story, but I still agree with you. By the way, Albert, we feel you on that, my friend, and thank you for being with us tonight.
I wasn't talking about all fans, though. I said a portion of the fan base.
And I agree. Albert, if you haven't seen it, there are a lot of fans. I don't want to paint with too broad of strokes here, but there's a shocking number of Broncos fans that have outright gone from being all about Drew to like literally hating his guts, dude. It's mystifying. Josh Trahill, also one of our Facebook supporters, as is Albert. Love you, buddy. He says, I'm a Drew Lock believer here. We just need a good number 2 quarterback, a good veteran to push Lock to the next level.
Agreed. That's my number one goal this offseason. As flashy and sexy as a Stafford trade might be, give me a veteran like Dalton for $10 million over 2 years. Let Drew Lock get a full season with no injuries and no pandemic and go to work. That's my preference for sure. I agree with you.
Dale Rude jumping in. Good to see you, bro. Appreciate you. He says, I'm curious to see how the Lock haters will react if he does show the progress next season. They say his ceiling is too low. Carolina, Houston is too low.
They picked those games apart too.
Hashtag Lock. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Those fans out there, I think it's one of those things where, if it comes to that and Drew ends up turning a corner and proving people wrong about him, that I think those fans are, by that point, they'll be happy to jump right back on the bandwagon. And I don't say that to be insulting. I think what's in part fueling the vitriol in that minority of Broncos fans right now for Lock is just the overall apathy, Zach, and dissatisfaction and anger over the last 5 years.
I remember after that Carolina game, everyone and their mother was looking to discredit Locke over his performance, and he was phenomenal in the second half of the game especially, but they were talking about the Carolina defense being so bad, and I remember pulling up stats and talking about in the podcast that Carolina defense actually did better work against better quarterbacks, and yet Drew Lock gets no credit for that. And the disgusting thing is, Chad, it's almost like Broncos fans, and I use that term loosely, would rather hope the Broncos and Lock would lose just so they can say they're right, and they can dump on Lock for being a quote-unquote bad quarterback. And even when he does win, New England, Miami, the Carolina game, the finale, not the finale, but he gets no credit for what he does. That finale, it was still the best performance of Locke in a Broncos uniform. And yet, it wasn't this, it wasn't that, he wasn't this. It's just amazing the level, like you said, the vitriol and the derangement really goes for number 3.
Peter, we got a new name on Super Chat, but as we learn here, Peter has been watching the pod and being in the community for a few months now. Appreciate you, Peter. Make sure you connect with us on Twitter so that we can shout you out after the show, but he says, been watching you guys for months now. First time sending a super chat. Mile high salute, dog. Thank you guys for keeping things real and always interesting during such a tough season. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. And I just want to point this out real quick. This is what I was talking about, guys. Same season last year, what Locke did against Carolina, that same defense shut out the Lions and everyone's favorite golden boy right now, Matt Stafford.
Sorry, John. We're sharing a brain.
That was me.
Oh, that was Zach. All right. Blue Raw, Chris, jumping in again. Thank you, bro. He says, why not Dak? Zach, since one of your jobs covering the NFL is on Dallas, drop some knowledge.
I hate to admit it, but I actually have a Dak shirt I'm going to wear on the podcast one time for one, just so I can prove my fandom for the quarterback. The man, to me, is phenomenal. Love watching him play. I think he's going to come back and win comeback player of the year. That ankle injury and the surgery won't impede him too much. He's a franchise guy to me, but I'll say this again. I don't think he's getting out of Dallas, Chad. I don't think they're going to let him get away. And I don't think the Broncos would pony up $40 million a year for him, even if he did. So I don't think it's too realistic.
All right, we have crossed the 1 hour mark. We got a few supers left to grab, and then we got to get out of here. So we'll rapid fire these bad boys and show the love that our superstars so deserve. Tony, our friend, I call him Tony D.A. all right, in Los Angeles. Discount Audio and Wheels. Got to give a shout out to his company, his business down there. Tony says, our defense is too nice. We need a few dogs. One on the D-line, a linebacker, and a safety corner. Some guys that would not take no smack, then punch you back. Since we cut T.J. Ward and traded Aqib Talib, our defense is way too nice. What do you think? Yeah, I mean, I think the closest thing you have, Zach, approximating a true dog that he's talking about, like think of some of the dogs that were on this defense in 2015. Closest thing is probably Kareem, right, where he walks that line of sometimes, laying that. I mean, think about that hit on DeAndre Hopkins in the Houston game previous year. But I guess it's true. I'm trying to think, like, who is that terrifying, scary dog on the defense? It ain't Justin Simmons.
AJ, because he dances like a dinosaur, like Luke pointed out, kind of turned me against AJ a little bit. It's true. Who had the quote, Chad, recently about not having enough? What was it? Was it Talib or Chris Harris or Emmanuel Sanders? A couple of seasons ago, they mentioned not having enough dogs in Denver.
It was either Harris or Talib. Now I'm not sure. I almost said Harris, but
it reminded me of that. They still have that same. We're getting that same question even 2 years later. So that's also a fair indictment of the Broncos locker room.
All right, John, I'm grabbing Muhammad here, and then a question from Mark Anthony, one of our superstars and Facebook supporters. Appreciate you. MHH Mel Miley says, shout out to the beast, Buona Beast. And yes, indeed. John is he's a godsend for us. Trust on that. And what's cool about John came out of the community just like you guys. He's a guy that the football gods, call it serendipity, whatever, brought us together and it worked out. So John does a lot for us, from not only managing these podcasts while we're live and helping with the community and getting the comments on and the supers and all that, but editing the podcast, social media promotion. He does a lot, video stuff. I mean, he does a lot more than people realize on the back end. So we love and appreciate John just as much. Mark Anthony, appreciate you, Mark. He says, can you explain the lame duck argument for Shermer? A spread offense is where the league is going, and why he was seen as a good fit for Locke. He underperformed and went back to the single back West Coast. So the funny thing about Shermer is, I don't mean to be too argumentative with you, Mark, but Shermer ran the spread. He ran the spread last year, right? That's his thing. It was single back, out of the gun, most of the snaps, 3 wide, 1 tight end, right? 11 personnel. It just didn't pan out, dude. And it wasn't so much like, what are your formations? It's not so much about even what's your personnel. Zach, his problem was, as a tactician, in the moment, calling plays, knowing how to exploit what the defense is doing, and then also scheming around the talent that you have. That's what really disappointed me most about Shermer.
Yeah, his problem was he was terrible as a coordinator last year. And where were the jet sweeps? Where were the reverses? Where were the RPOs? Where was anything you see from any other creative mind in 2020, 2021 NFL? The Broncos weren't there. They were stuck back in 2010. That's the problem with Pat Shermer.
Dave from Georgia, again, thank you, bro. He says, hypothetically speaking, would you trade the number 9 overall pick for Chicago Bears linebacker Roquan Smith. Hashtag Broncos country. That's a good question, because I want to say he was drafted right around there, like 8 or 9 in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. But I might do it. I don't think it'll happen, but I might do that.
I'm not doing that. If Parsons is there, I'm taking Parsons. I think he's going to be a better pro than Roquan Smith is, and he's had some injury concerns. I don't know. I'd rather gamble on the unknown than the known with that kind of pick. And they don't need a linebacker that bad where you're pigeonholing yourself into taking one. Could be a corner there, Chad. It could be Caleb Farley. It could be Surtain. So I would not do that trade, no.
Jason Christopher, appreciate the super chat support, my friend. And he says, this one's for Beast, for the Buona Beast, getting some love tonight. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate you, dog. Anthony Edwards, appreciate you again. He says, born and raised in Arizona. I love Jake Plummer at Arizona State and Denver. Yeah, and Jake Plummer, he's from the Rockies. He's born and raised in Boise, Idaho. Then he goes down to Arizona State, and then he ends up in Denver. And Broncos traded him to Tampa Bay, but that's when he said, I'm out, retired. Sorry, I'm not going to go play for John Gruden in circa 07. I'm out. So that was about the time the Gruden train careened completely off the tracks, and Plummer was able to see that, yeah, it'd probably be better to fade into the background. Dan Hall, yeah, thank you, man. Anniversary of Super Bowl 32, the Broncos triumph over the heavily favored. What was that, John? Was it a 10-point spread, I want to say, on the Packers? I
have no clue right now.
Baby, but I want to say it was more than a touchdown. I'll tell you that. It was a shock, not just because the Broncos had lost all 4 Super Bowls they'd been to prior, but the Packers were the juggernaut, man. They were the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, Brett Favre was the reigning MVP, that reigning world champs also, and that was a huge upset. So thank you for reminding us. Today is the anniversary of that. Sweet. This one's for John Wynn. Naj, good to see you, bro. Appreciate that super. He says, hey, brothers, not overly excited about the Stafford rumors, not overly optimistic on Locke either, mostly because of the coaching he has received. I understand that. But all these rumors should fuel him and make him better. I agree. And it was funny because he was asked in his last presser, the day he's cleaning out his locker that day, hey, what do you make of some of the rumors and this and that? And he goes, well, I guess I got to hear them first, because nothing had really happened up to that point that he, but by this point, I mean, he'd have to be specifically just staying off social, staying off the internet. And maybe he has, but there's a lot of rumors right now, and it's got to make him wonder where he stands with the team. And maybe, who knows? We don't know, Zach. Maybe George Payton's called him and said, ignore the rumors. You're my guy. I doubt it, but you got to wonder.
I haven't really considered that last year, Locke really faced no speculation about his status as the starter for that season. And now it's Stafford, Watson, Rodgers, every quarterback under the sun, Trubisky. That's a whole different animal for someone like Drew Lock. But as we've mentioned, he's the type of gamer and the type of competitor where these rumors would fuel him, not dissuade him. It wouldn't get him down like a Paxton Lynch. It would make him a better quarterback, and I think he would use it as motivation. So if that's the goal here, Chad, is to be involved in every deal for quarterbacks with the hope of building up Drew Lock, I can support that. But it's a fine line you have to walk, and not wanting to hurt his confidence either.
Yep. You reach, if you're not careful, you can reach that point of diminishing returns. And let's not forget, the whole thing that soured Jay Cutler and Josh McDaniels was Jay Cutler heard a rumor that eventually proved to be true, that that Josh McDaniels was calling teams, and he was involved. He had put together some kind of a 3-way trade, if I remember, and it eventually got out into the media. And all it took was the rumor of that to piss off Cutler, and it soured completely, ended up traded. All right, last 2 from Clifton here, Zach. I want you to answer this, and then we got one from Dennis, and then we got to go. Clifton on YouTube, thanks for the question. Thanks for listening. Why is Andy Dalton an option? LOL. I never I never saw Dalton lift the Bengals to glory. We're not saying bring in Andy Dalton to be the guy, dude. Clifton, we're talking about the guy who – did you see what he did this year as Dak Prescott's failsafe? I mean, the Cowboys had so many holes that it was over before it even started. But toward the end of the season, when he got his legs underneath him, I mean, Zach, I can pull up the numbers, even though we're late. We probably shouldn't. But I mean, he's scoring 35, 41 points.
Yeah.
With a terrible team, a crappy offensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a dude that we're talking about him as a fail-safe and a fail-safe only, but you need that guy.
Yeah, and you know what? I've done more research on Andy Dalton the last year than I ever want to do again, but he's had more than 34,000 career passing yards. He's had over 70 career wins, 3 Pro Bowl trips in 10 seasons in Cincinnati. In week 16 of this past season, threw for 377 and 3 touchdowns. That is not just a hold the fort, pray, get by with Brett Rippon kind of guy. That's a guy, when he's on, he can lead you to a win. And that's a guy, you pair him with the weapons they have in Denver and the defense they have in Denver and the running game they have in Denver, that could be a 9-10 win team. I'm not saying he's a long-term option. You can do a lot worse, though, than Andy Dalton as your Band-Aid, backup, fail-safe, whatever, emergency option.
I mean, look at this, all right? Week 14, 30 points. Week 15 against the Niners, 41 points. All right. Week 16 against the Eagles, 37 points. Now, none of these are juggernauts. These aren't juggernauts, all right? But these are NFL competition, and this is what you do if you're going against subpar competition. If you're bona fide, if you're competent, this is what you do. 37 against the Eagles. Giants, ugly, right? 19 to 23 loss, but nevertheless, that's what we're talking about. Someone that is just better than Jeff Driscoll or Brett Rippon. All right. Sorry, John. Throw him back up. My bad. Dennis Woods, good to see you, my brother. And what a great superstar to end this podcast on. Appreciate you, Dennis. He says, I haven't been in for a while, but I've been watching, just showing some support. Enjoy you guys. Appreciate you, Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis.
Hey, man, we miss you when you're not here, but we're glad to hear you're still listening, even if you can't be in the chat. And we, of course, really, really appreciate your support.
Yeah, we'll always be here whenever you want to come, Dennis.
Yeah, and that's something that, Luke brought up as he was kind of signing off, Mile High Huddle. We are the only outlet that does a true daily podcast. Now, there are outlets out there that claim they're daily. Locked On Network. And I'm not just talking to Broncos, the whole lockdown thing. None of them do 7 days a week. We do 7 days a week. Some of our competition out there, bless their hearts, and we respect them and we got love for them. No one does 7 pods a week. We keep coming back. We keep doing this because of you. All right. So thank you so much for being here for us tonight, my friends, and also every day. I mean, you're here for us every single day. And Zach and I and John and all the dudes, we just appreciate you guys so much. But we got to get out of here. So let's, we can keep the conversation going. It doesn't end tonight. Zach and I are off tomorrow, but we'll be creating content, writing articles, tweeting, and that's where you can catch us and keep this conversation going, starting by following the podcast account at Huddle Up Pod. Also, the main account at Mile High Huddle. My partner, Zack Kelberman, at Kelberman NFL. Myself, at Chad and Jensen. And our producer, you know him as Buana Beast, but on Twitter, it's at John K. MHH. Also, gentle reminder to check out the old merch store, huddleuppod.com. Get your swag on, all right? Pick up a hat, pick up a T-shirt. Become a supporter so that you can get in on Kelberman's Corner, episode 4, on Sunday. It's happening with or without you. We prefer it to happen with you. All right. Just go to the page, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. Big blue button, become a supporter. You're in like Flynn. And then one last thing I want to do here, Zach, quick shout out before we dip on out, is we just started late last week an official Huddle Up podcast Facebook page. All right. And we need every single one of you, even if you're not big on Facebook, but you have an account, we need you to go to the page and like it, follow the page. We're trying to build this page up as quickly as possible because this is another part of our plan in 2021 to unveil some additional content and some new programming for you. So go over to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod, and I'll put the link right now once again in the chat stream here. So make it easy on you guys. You can navigate right over. But cruise over, give that page a like. We really appreciate it. We're going to probably somewhere middle of February, we're going to do a giveaway. So a couple raffles for people who are followers of that page. We're going to throw out some swag, randomly selected name or two, throw you a hat, throw you a hoodie, throw you a personalized card from Zach and myself. We're going to do some fun stuff for those of you who are following that page. So head on over there, take care of that business. And other than that, I'm done. Zach, great night, great show. Appreciate you, bro. Have a great start to your week, and we'll circle back Wednesday.
Yes, sir. And we'll try to get Luke back on for an update on the Senior Bowl. But it is Senior Bowl week, and the Broncos, in some capacity, are out there scouting the prospects. Be sure to tune into the content. Check out the content. Chad wrote about Stafford. I wrote about Renaldo Hill. Check it out on the website, milehighhuddle.com. We will see you Wednesday night. Take care. And as always, Mile High salute. Go Broncos.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.